Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we really get into one specific piece of content and sort of take it apart for you. Today, we're looking at an audio clip. It's got a, let's say, a very attention-grabbing title. Shit hits the fan. 3.2.17. Yikes. UFO breaks out on MP3. Yeah. And it's basically framed as this urgent warning, about global collapse, all kinds of threats. So our mission today is pretty straightforward. Unpack the claims made in this pretty dramatic audio, figure out what the speaker is actually warning about, and look at the pieces of evidence or assertions they use.
It's definitely an intense piece of audio. And yeah, our goal here is really just to explore what's being claimed very impartially. We're not, signing off on any of it. It's more about giving you, the listener, a clear picture of the specific worries the speaker raises and maybe just as importantly, how they build that case. Just understanding the message itself.
Okay, all right. Let's dive in then. The core idea where this audio really kicks things off is this claim about former President Obama. Apparently, he gave a speech May 31st at the National Response Center at FEMA, the disaster agency. And according to the speaker, Obama warned about, well, a whole list. EMP attacks, engineered pandemics, huge earthquakes, even martial law. But what the source really emphasizes and finds notable is that Obama supposedly stressed individual responsibility for getting ready for disasters. Things like having evacuation plans, disaster kits stocked up. The speaker even makes a quip, something like, probably the only 2 times you'll ever hear Obama say individual responsibility in his life.
Right. And what's really striking is how upfront the speaker is about their goal. They literally say they want to absolutely scare the living snot out of you. They seem to feel Americans just aren't taking these kinds of warnings seriously enough. There's this perceived lack of urgency. And then they kind of set themselves up, saying they've talked about a lot of this stuff before. They ask, are they psychic, or is there just a crap ton of evidence they've been reporting on?
It's a rhetorical question, really, positioning themselves as someone in the know.
Exactly.
So from that point, the speaker starts detailing the specific threats. They even say they're listing them from least scary to most scary, except for one thing: economic collapse leading to martial law. That, they say, isn't on the scary list because it's a certainty.
Certainty, wow.
Yeah. So let's walk through these threats as the audio lays them out, starting with what they consider, relatively speaking, less scary. First one up. This idea of an engineered pandemic. They talk about the world's first superbug supposedly reaching the U.S., and the claim is this bug is immune to all antibiotics. First of its kind in history that we know of.
Okay, that phrase, immune to all antibiotics, that's a huge claim. I mean, antibiotic resistance is definitely a real serious global issue scientists are tackling. But something totally immune to everything, that would be, well, unprecedented, really extreme. It certainly fits the alarmist tone.
Right. And the speaker finds something specific incredibly odd about this.
Yeah, they point out that it was supposedly the Department of Defense, the DoD, that announced this superbug, not the CDC. And they immediately link that, or suggest a link, to a previous claim they apparently made, that the Ebola strain that hit Africa hard was, quote, patented to the U.S. military. And they just leave it there, saying, make up that whatever you will about those connections. Very suggestive.
Okay, so moving from pandemics, the next warning is about earthquakes. Massive earthquakes along fault lines that we hadn't previously been aware of. And they tell this story, an anecdote about a FEMA meeting back in April, where apparently there was talk about underground drilling. Drilling for what the speaker calls dumb bases. D-U-M-B, deep underground military bases, I assume.
That's the common interpretation, yeah. They describe them as enormous military complexes connected by hundreds of miles of underground highways and trains.
Right. But then it gets even more dramatic.
Oh, yeah. The speaker then claims there's lava flowing near one of these trains, and that this lava is somehow getting into the Mississippi River.
Lava in the Mississippi.
Yeah. And they also mention these reports, supposedly widespread, of trumpeting sounds or weird horn noises coming from underground, sounds that many have speculated it's been coming from below their feet. The speaker's conclusion, quote, "We screwed up big time and hit something that we weren't supposed to hit."
It's a very cinematic description of some kind of underground catastrophe linked to these bases.
Definitely paints a picture.
And the audio claims that various scientists are now worried about a major separation of landmass because of all this. They even mention very specifically 2 doctors using state-of-the-art satellite equipment who supposedly show, with virtually no doubt, that these underground bunkers go on for miles and miles, which leads the speaker to conclude, Somebody has spent trillions of dollars of our tax dollars building them.
And notice the language there. State-of-the-art satellite equipment.
Yeah.
Virtually no doubt 2 doctors. It sounds specific, authoritative. But there are no names, no actual data sources cited you could check. It's a common technique, right? To imply solid evidence about actually providing it.
Exactly. Gives it that veneer of scientific backing. Okay, so next thought.
EMPs. Electromagnetic pulses. This, the speaker says, is the scariest one.
And they frame it as a double threat. It could come from an enemy, a weaponized EMP.
Just Mother Nature, a massive solar flare hitting Earth. So an EMP basically is this big burst of electromagnetic energy. It could potentially fry electronics, mess up power grids badly. The speaker brings up the last really big solar storm that hit us directly, the Carrington event back in the 1800s.
Ah, yeah.
And they make the point that back then, not a lot was lost because, well, we didn't have much electricity, mostly just telegraphs. But today, they argue the potential exists for the entire planet losing power. And they say this isn't just possible, it's probable, pointing to quite a few near misses we've apparently had.
Okay, probable. And this is where it gets, like you said, really interesting, right? The speaker throws out a number.
Yeah.
They claim it would only cost about $2 billion to insulate or harden enough of the U.S. power grid to survive an EMP. Just $2 billion. Yet they claim Congress will not do it.
It's a really effective rhetorical point, isn't it? Makes it sound like a simple, affordable fix that's being deliberately ignored. And they ask the question directly. Why is Congress not spending $2 billion to insulate power grid? Then they offer their own speculative answer. I don't know. May have something to do with the trillions of dollars worth of underground bases they're building.
Connecting it back.
Always connecting it back. It's worth pointing out, though, that real-world estimates for fully hardening a national grid against EMPs, they vary wildly, but often run into the hundreds of billions, maybe even trillions. So that $2 billion figure seems, well, simplified. Conveniently small for the argument.
Right. Makes the alleged inaction seem much worse.
Exactly. And they paint a grim picture of the consequences. Power goes out, then food and water supplies get curtailed, disease outbreaks happen, and eventually the breakdown of society.
Okay. So that brings us to the last major item, the one they called a certainty.
Economic collapse leading to martial law.
Yeah. The speaker sounds completely convinced on this one. They state that martial law has happened plenty of times in this country. And they also claim that our own Pentagon has come out and said we are planning for massive civil unrest.
And they give examples of what they mean by massive civil unrest. They mentioned Ferguson, Baltimore, buildings burning. Real events used to illustrate this future scenario.
It's important context, though, that historically, uses of martial law in the U.S. have usually been very localized, very temporary for specific emergencies. It's quite different from the kind of indefinite, nationwide situation this audio seems to imply.
That's a very fair point. The speaker also brings up George Soros and his group Democracy Spring, claiming they promised unrest if Trump got elected, and framing this as, quote, not a conspiracy.
Right. And for anyone wanting more on the financial collapse angle, the speaker recommends reading articles. They mention a brilliant article written by Michael Snyder and say there are hundreds of articles out there.
Yeah, just read 5 or 6 and you'll get a pretty good idea what's going on, apparently.
Yeah, bruh.
Directs people to seek out confirming information.
Okay. Now, we get to maybe the most charged part of this whole preparedness discussion. It ties back to Obama and FEMA.
Ah, the FEMA app.
Yes. The speaker brings up Obama mentioning a FEMA app, presumably one that helps you find emergency shelters during a disaster.
But that's not how the speaker interprets it at all.
No.
They immediately pivot. They say, for anybody, again, that's been living under a rock, we call these FEMA camps.
Camps, not shelters.
Right. And these aren't for your safety, according to the speaker. They are internment camps. They paint this picture. When the locks are on the outside and I'm on the inside.
Wow. That's quite the interpretation of a disaster shelter app.
It is. And they double down, claiming Obama has spoken very freely about the FEMA camps in the past. Again, no specific quote or source provided for that claim.
So wrapping all this up, the speaker's core message, the through line, is just extreme urgency. Prepare now.
Yeah. And they promote their sponsors, naturally. Food for Liberty for storable food, their own website for survival gear, books on surviving collapse, living like our ancestors did.
Practical advice mixed with dire warnings.
And that final warning really sums it up. This stuff is not going away, only getting worse. It leaves you with this feeling of inevitable, escalating crisis.
So when you take a step back, What does all this mean? We've just gone through this whirlwind of specific, really alarming claims from just one audio source. It paints a picture of society teetering on the brink.
Yeah, and what's really striking, I think, is that consistent narrative thread. It's all about distrusting the official channels, the government, the mainstream institutions, and this intense focus on individual action, individual preparedness, because you supposedly can't rely on anyone else. It posits this hidden knowledge, these ignored threats that only certain people are aware of.
Right, an informed elite, maybe, versus an unaware public.
Something like that. And the way it's presented, using very vivid, often frightening scenarios, strong emotional language.
Hmm.
That's clearly key to how it tries to persuade.
So it leaves you, the listener, with a real question, doesn't it? Given these kinds of extreme claims we've unpacked here, claims of imminent disaster that's also being deliberately hidden, how do you even begin to assess that?
Hmm.
How urgent should you feel? And maybe more fundamentally, what does it mean for how you personally decide what information to trust, especially when it comes to potential disruption or crisis? It really makes you think about how you evaluate sources.